Okay, so what is digital advertising and why should grassroots activists care about it? So you all know that the number one axiom of campaigning is meeting voters where they are. And the reality of it is in 2020, voters are online. So you'll see the statistic here, which is that US adults spend an average of 6 hours per day with their digital media. We are living in a digital world, like it or not. US adults, again, spend an average of 6 hours per day with digital media. 73% of US adults use YouTube and 69% use Facebook. Also, just to point out, sometimes people think digital is just for young people. As you can see from these statistics, 55 and older is 3 times more likely to click on a Facebook ad. And Facebook is the most popular platform for older voters. Some of the reasons why I'm a huge fan of digital, this is where I work in this space, is that I really believe of the different campaign techniques, mail, TV, and digital, that digital is the biggest bang for the campaign's buck. And there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, it's precise. We only spend dollars speaking to voters that we know we want to talk to. So we're not like TV, blanketing a metropolitan market that may have some voters who are out of the district or are Republicans or unregistered. We're only spending ad dollars on voters we want to talk to. It's also cost effective. Digital ad buys are much, much cheaper than television, exponentially cheaper. It's also an active medium. You can like, you can share, you can comment, you can engage, which is something you cannot do with mail or TV. So we like the interactive aspect of it. And lastly, it's nimble. With mail and TV, mailers need to be printed early on. TV ads need to be cut early on. And as things change in the last, weeks of a campaign, particularly when we see Republican oppo dropped, we are able to really pivot quickly with digital. We can cut content in a day and push it out very quickly to our audiences. So just to sort of backtrack a little bit and explain to you, there are essentially 3 components to having a good, effective digital campaign. And I kind of love my metaphors, so I like to refer to them as 3 legs of a stool. So the first is that you need to have compelling digital content. The second is that you need to have optimal distribution. And the third piece is that you need to have smart targeting. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what each of these is. So in terms of compelling content, we're really talking about, what is digital advertising? And really there are two different kinds of ads. You can have video ads, which you see up top here, and you can have display ads. So video ads are just what they sound like. They're videos. We tend to make candidate to camera content. And as you see, we do a lot of graphics heavy work that's very energetic because we really want to engage our viewers and get them to watch the entire ad. You also have something called display ads, which are also called static ads, which you see, it's just a picture as opposed to a video that has that movement in it. So you'll see, here we have a static ad for Shelley Simons. It basically is going to have her logo and, some quick statement about her. This is another version of a display ad. We know that digital storytelling is compelling and effective, and you all will remember that in 2018, all these viral videos burst on the screen and really told the story of a lot of women, especially, who were not well known and sort of took the political world by storm and helped flip the US House of Representatives. And a lot of people associate those viral ads with the Amy McGrath ads. In addition to the fact that they're great ads, I point them out because our creative director actually produced all of the Amy McGrath ads and worked on the MJ Hager Doors ad that was very famous that year. So we're thrilled to have him working on our team. The second piece of an effective digital campaign is optimal distribution. And again, I like to use my metaphors. Having really great content or a great video without a plan of how to distribute it, actually push it out to the voters you need to speak to me is like giving a Mercedes to someone who doesn't know how to drive. It looks great in the driveway, but they really can't do anything with it. And so part of our mission is to not just make great content, we want to make sure that we're actually pushing those messages out properly. So what do I mean by distribution? Okay, so we have a very fragmented media ecosystem, even when it comes to digital. So this requires that we have a multi-platform approach. So for instance, you have people who look at their content on their phone. You have people who look at their content on their iPad. You have people who stream their content on their TVs. You have people who use a desktop computer, a laptop computer. So the question is, how do we reach all those different voters in that way? And that's by taking a multi-platform approach, which involves, social media, Facebook, Instagram, those kind of platforms, mobile, which are your cell phones or your iPads, desktop and your IP, which would be, your laptop, your desktop computer, where we're targeting voters based on their router in their home, and also connected TV, which is where folks are streaming their TV content, through like Hulu or Roku or Apple TV and apps like that. So distribution vendors execute the ad buys, and they then, we call it, serve those ads on voters. And, we just mentioned some of the places and platforms you can do that: Hulu, Pandora, Spotify. And these ad buys run through an auction. And the major platforms are, as I said, Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube is a part of Google as well. The other interesting thing about what we're able to do with digital is that we are able to follow people. And this sometimes feels a little creepy to people, but it's the reality of the world we live in now. For instance, if you look down here, we start with someone who's in their bed in the morning and they pick up their iPhone as soon as they wake up, and we can be trying to reach them on their mobile device in that way. And then they're having breakfast and maybe they're sitting at their breakfast table with their iPad, and we're able to reach them through their IP router. And then they're commuting in the car, so maybe they're listening to Pandora. Or they're on a bus, so they're streaming their content. Then they're at work on their laptop or their desktop, where we can serve them ads there. And you get the idea. Wherever you are, and as you move along in your day, you're using some device, and we are targeting in all this variety of ways those devices. I just want to show you a couple examples of what this looks like. So for instance, if you're on your laptop or your desktop and you're on the CNN app, you've all seen this, where an ad pops up and you usually have to watch a few seconds of it, and then you can click out of it if you want to. But this is an example of one of the ads we ran in Virginia this year, and that's what it sort of looked like when it would pop up on that CNN page. This is example if you're in the ESPN app. This is another one of our ads that we made for Phil Hernandez. That's where the ad would appear for someone who was in the ESPN app. The final piece of a really good digital campaign is smart targeting. So again, using my metaphors, I like to talk about, targeting is sending a particular piece of digital content to a specific audience based on a predetermined set of characteristics. So with digital, we are actually crafting tailored messages for different audiences that we want to talk to, and dropping those individual messages down those chutes of those voters. Targeted messaging drives increased engagement. And I show you this, and you all are free to pause this if you want to look at something a little more in depth. But the point that I'm trying to make is that you can see this was a survey where different age people were asked to identify the most important issue to them. It's very different for the different age groups. So the bottom line is that for effective messaging, one size does not fit all. That's why digital becomes so important, because we can tailor and craft individual messages that, again, we're then targeting to those different voters based on their match with a voter file, and sort of dropping those specific tailored messages down their chutes. We also like digital, again, because we can not do a one-size-fits-all, and we can personalize messaging in the sense that every voter wants to look at an ad and say, how is this about me? You know, we need to create content for different audiences that's going to resonate with them. And we can then target we can use geo-targeting, we can use micro-targeting, which is sort of Facebook classifies Americans into one of 5 political categories, and we can match voters that way and target them. We do our work mostly with voter files for individual districts, so we know, you know, based on their partisanship and propensity to vote, we kind of arrive at that universe, much like a lot of you knock doors, that we want to communicate with, and we're able to then match those voter file records with folks on Facebook through their mobile devices or through their home IPs. And the last is psychographic targeting, which has to do with appealing to different voters according to their values and such. You've heard of psychographic targeting in a negative way, which was how a lot of the Russian misinformation campaign occurred in 2016. We use this differently, which is to appeal to the values of our voters and what kind of messaging we think will resonate with them. So people always ask, does digital get results? And I say the spoiler alert is yes. And one race that we like to talk about is a race we just worked in Virginia that 31st Street helped us raise a lot of money for. It was a race Nancy Guy, 31st Street helped raise the money to film Nancy's ad for free to her, and then also create a video for her on Medicaid expansion, which was determined in mid-October when her race was in a tie, was the kind of content that would move the meter the most for her. So we were able to make that ad for her. We were able to you know, do the distribution and ad buys that I'm talking about. In addition to funds that we had, Nancy also put some money in, and Nancy Guy,
now that the Trump administration is trying,
ended up winning that race by 41 votes. So these are games of inches in state ledge, and we really feel like we're able to make a difference with this digital content. So the work that 31st Street through their fundraising was able to help us do in Virginia 2019, we ended up, my organizations made 52 video ads for candidates. We helped hold 10 vulnerable incumbent seats. We helped flip 5 seats red to blue, and we helped establish a trifecta in Virginia. And these are races where we believe that our impact on messaging, our digital work made a big difference, and our candidates all agree with that. We also like to look at the near misses, and in Virginia there were quite a few races that were left on the table. If you look at those margins, under 5% loss. The interesting thing is every one of these races was a race that did not work with us through the campaign to have vigorous, robust digital plans, and 31st Street came in at the very 11th hour and said, we're going to make you a piece of digital content to use. And so in my opinion, it was too little too late for these folks. And if they would have embraced digital a little sooner and with a little more attention and funds, they may well have crossed the finish line as well. The last thing I'd like to point out about does digital work is none of us are fans of Donald Trump, but if there's one thing we know, it's that man knew how to win an election that he had no business winning. And it's no secret that he rode Facebook to the White House. So in 2016, if you look at digital spend, Madison Avenue was at about 54% of all of its paid media. It was putting toward digital as opposed to print or mail or TV. They were putting 54% of their ad budget in digital. Trump was putting 44% of all of his paid ad buys into digital. And I don't have to show you that the Democrats were down here at 7%, which obviously had a lot to do with the poor performance that we've seen. But it is very frustrating that, as the New York Times points out, Trump knows digital ads work. Why don't the Democrats? And we are still playing a lot of catch up in this department, and that's really where my work and 31st Street's support of this work has helped bridge that gap, where unfortunately Democrats have not caught on to the importance of digital. And that's why the work that we're doing to make sure these candidates have the digital tools they need to win in 2020, get them. So just to give you an example, in Virginia 2019, this is what the typical spread looked like in a Virginia race. That big tan section of the pie chart you see was money spent on TV. The green is mail, and that little itty bitty sliver is digital. We played a pretty good role in even making that much of a sliver be there in gray for digital. But this, in my opinion, is really a very unbalanced portfolio. And given the statistics about where voters are today, we really need to do a better job. And that is our mission at Virginia Matters, and our states matter, and why 31st Street is helping us with this effort. As you all know, we're living in a virtual world here right now. We don't know for how long, but what we do know is that everything I've just said to you about digital is all the more important and all the more compelling, given that if this lockdown stays in effect as indefinitely, digital will be the only way for us to have our candidates to have real communication with voters, because they won't be able to knock on doors and hold events. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your support, and stay safe.